It's time for Normalville, it's time for Normalville, it's time for Normalville. Gonna get a little crazy like you know we will. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of the Abnormal Hour. I am your host, Alex Rennie, with my partner,
Frank Hildebrandt. Hey.
Frank. Welcome, my man. So
Oh.
Frank said this is our, we have a dozen episodes under our belt.
Today is brought to you by Dozen.
A dozen.
Welcome
A baker's
to
dozen.
Not quite the baker's dozen. That's the next one.
Next one.
Right.
So anyhow, we are glad to see you here today. And as always, we're going to go back in time to our last whiteboard and cartoon.
Let's go.
So this was last week's whiteboard, and I had come up with this name. I was driving the school bus, and I thought of Kathy and the Catheters. There was something playing on the radio. I have a stereo on the bus, and it was like a 50s, 60s era band where it was like, you know, Donnie and the Donnie Tones or something like that. And I thought, how funny would it be to do this? And so my initial punchline was, you know, we have this manager and his band. My first order of business as your new manager, we need to change the name because the name is just awful.
Yes.
And Frank came up with another punchline. So here was idea A, the original, my idea. And then Frank, what was your punchline? Punchline B.
I don't know where we got this gig, but we're playing at the Shady Acres retirement home. Well, they're just baffled. Why would a retirement home want us? But yeah, the catheters.
So we didn't know which was better. You know, I liked mine, Frank liked his. So we put it to a vote. We went online and asked our viewers to vote A for the original, change the name, or B, Shady Acres Retirement Home. And the winner was C.
Neither of us.
We had an option of a write-in ballot in the spirit of the election, and one of our fans and friends named Stu Rosen, who is a fellow cartoonist, came up with this genius punchline. The other band, Intravenous, had to pull out, so we've got this gig in the bag. So we want to thank everyone who submitted their votes, and we would also like to thank two other contributors that had submitted their own punchlines. And thank you, Brittany and Laura, for also giving us your wonderful ideas. But Stu was, in fact, the winner. He had the best one. Mm-hmm. So with that, we want to actually invite our very first guest ever on the show, the man who created this punchline, Mr. Stu Rosen. Stu, welcome to the Abnormal Hour.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Good to meet you.
Oh, what was that? Sorry, Frank.
It's good to meet you.
Yeah. So tell the people at home and tell us a little bit about yourself and your history.
Okay. One of the things that I've done since I was younger, I've been a cartoonist for many, many years, which is kind of what brought us into this circle here, is back when I was little, everyone would get up and watch Saturday morning cartoons, which that's kind of dating yourself. But I used to get up to draw the cartoons. And so I would do all the different facial expressions and I always wanted a career in cartooning and in graphics. I also wanted to be a veterinarian of all things. And the whole thing came together because right now I actually have a job at VCA animal hospitals of all things. I'm the IT communications, and I actually produce videos all day, and I do presentations, and I do graphics and everything else. So it really is a terrific day job to have. In 2018, I had everything in my life just kind of started falling apart, as life happens, and you build up a life that's not exactly authentic. So when it falls apart, it really is falling into place. And I went on a spiritual retreat for myself, and I went up to the top of a mountain and I said, what skills do I have that's going to get me back, to get me out of this stuff? And so I said, art. Art is the way to get me back. And I had this little ritual. I was saying goodbye to people and things, and I had these little symbols that I was tossing off into the valley, you know, saying goodbye. And I had a little heart-shaped pencil sharpener, and I was saying goodbye to my parents who had recently passed away. So when it came time to start to draw, I took out my pencil and I was ready to go, and the pencil was dull. And I'm like, if I only had a pencil sharpener, I'd be... So what I did was I took out a pen and I said, no excuses. There's no turning back. When you work with a pen, what you get is what you get. Welcome to life. There's no turning back. And so I started to become a ballpoint pen artist in 2018. But let's bring it back to the cartoons that I actually started in 2003. It's been 17 years.
Wow.
I've been doing a lot of cartoons. And so I'm very used to, and I do a 3-panel setup. So it's, you know, you set up the joke, you complicate it, then you solve it with something that's very funny. So I'm just very used to doing punchlines. So that's why it was great when I came up with your guys' stuff.
That was a brilliant punchline. We'll bring that back up on the screen. That was
anything that went through your mind when you were looking at it, like wacko things?
No wacko things. Well, the thing was, I noticed that you were going for a rock band. So that definitely set the genre of this kind of this heavy metal. And, you know, Kathy and the Catheters. So you were talking about medical, you're talking about senior stuff. And so in my head, I'm going, okay, what kind of heavy metal theme have we got here? So I started to think of other band names, you know, and it's like intravenous, yeah, you know, so you get that sort of thing. And so that was one of the first things that popped into my head, because catheter, intravenous. And if you think, how do you get a gig, right? Because you were talking about how, oh yeah, no, we got this gig. Well, someone usually pulls out. And that goes with these, you know, catheters pull out and intravenous pulls out. And so then those things started to form out. So the other band, intravenous, had to pull out. And then, of course, you think catheter, I think bag. Don't go there, but I went there. And then it all just kind of fell right into place.
But this is great, man. Thank you. That was, you know, we had 2 other write-in submissions and a lot of people voted. And my dad said, I like Stu's idea when he cast his vote. So we knew we had a winner.
And he is president of the fan club. So
he is president.
Well, that's good. No, I was just really glad. And then when I saw you calling, I'm like, he's probably just asking for permission, you know, and I'm like, of course, of course. And to be invited here has been awesome.
Oh, man.
Cool.
Thank you so much. I mean, honor to have you. You're our very first guest ever on our show, which is cool.
History.
I hope I can live up to that honor. And where do you guys, my question to you guys is, where do you guys get your ideas from?
Anything, everything, sometimes from nothing.
Yeah.
You know, the Kathy and catheters, that came from nothing, right?
I was just listening on the radio and
you know, when we did the guys hunting King Kong, that was from nothing. But usually it's from something, and we'll get ideas from when we do our news break. I was like, oh, that could turn just that way, right?
We've had quite a few cartoons come, because we try to, I don't know if you saw the show, we do like these crazy news stories, right?
Right.
And that sometimes sparks, I mean, it might start here and then segue into something completely different. And one thing for us, Stu, with Frank and I, is when we have like these moments, we'll text each other right away, or we'll write it down so we don't lose it, because that definitely happened early on. I'm like, dude, I had this genius idea and I don't remember it. But anyway, with that, what do you say we do a whiteboard?
Let's go for it.
We'll go right to it. All right. So. All right, welcome everybody to today's whiteboard number 1 with our special guest idea man, Stu Rosen. And we had a little discussion before this based off of Stu's story about, standing on the mountain, looking back at life, or how would you word that? Standing on the mountain.
Or you're finding your way or something like that, wasn't it, Stu?
Yeah, in search of life's meaning, really.
Yeah. Finding out the meaning of life.
The meaning of life. See, because that goes a lot with my Enlight tunes, because I definitely would see myself on top of the mountain searching for the meaning of life.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my rendition of you, Stu.
There you go.
Really?
No, COVID hair, COVID hair.
That is uncanny.
So I'm gonna make it just kind of simple right here. Hands in the pockets.
I can't tell you how many times I've drawn myself with hands in pockets. It's just like. Well, okay, to go in that vein is like, I'm up there looking for relief. Oh, I wish I could get rid of all this tension. Oh, that's better.
There, done.
This isn't bad, man.
That's
Or
good.
The eagle,
More jokes.
the, the eagle has just smelt it, right?
What do you guys think? You happy with it, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, because that's also something that everyone can relate to or whatever. You talk about topics that everyone can relate to. If you're talking about LA, you're talking about traffic, you talk about weather, you talk about parenting. I'm typically commenting on Facebook about what it's like to raise a teenager.
Stu gave me one of the best pieces of advice regarding my teenage stepson. It said he locks himself in the room all day and we just don't know what's going on. And Stu, do you remember what you said to me?
No, I'm sorry.
It was absolutely brilliant. He said,
Oh, then I should remember it.
He said, Alex, here's what I've come to realize when it comes to raising a teenage boy, because we both have boys. He says, I let him do his thing. If he comes out the next day and he uses the bathroom and eats, I know he's alive and I've done my job as a parent. That's all I can hope for.
Pretty much. If we're both alive at the end of the day,
Yeah.
my job is done.
Hey guys, welcome to whiteboard number 2. And since we're a bunch of old farts on the show, we decided we're gonna do a back in my day theme.
Yes.
my day.
Education and such.
Education. So Stu, you just had a pretty good little brain idea. What was yours?
Well, I've noticed that ever since the beginning of time that we've always been saying, back in my day, we used to do it this way. So I just had this idea of in the cave dwelling. All of a sudden we go way back to the time where they're in a cave and the kid is making a drawing on the, on the wall. And then the parent is like, back in my day, we used to.
I like it. Should be like charcoal stick or burnt stick or
Fire stick.
Fancy
Fire stick, because they wouldn't know it's called a charcoal or anything else. It's a fire
That's
stick.
true.
Yeah, fire stick works. Let's have the baby toasting a lizard.
Oh, poor little lizard.
Right, poor lizard. So I'll make the lizard green just for the heck of it because I can.
There we go. Yep.
Back in my day, we know how fancy fire stick. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yep, it is very good. Okay.
Clean fun. Can't piss off anybody.
That's right. Who doesn't love cake?
Flatulence allowed in that one.
Exactly.
So guys, thank you for whiteboard number 2. That was really fun. That's kind of a first to do back-to-back whiteboards like that.
We only anticipated doing one whiteboard with Stu, but it was just rolling. So like, all right, let's get them both done.
Because Stu is the man.
Yeah, Stu the guru.
Hey.
Excellent. So with that, we're going to go to our next segment, which is our news break.
Frank,
lead us off.
Okay, today's first news story. Man keeps half-eaten sandwich from Nixon. So an Illinois man has just celebrated 60 years since he scooped a half-eaten sandwich from Richard Nixon.
Oh my gosh.
So it was in Sullivan, Illinois. Nixon was doing a speech, but before that, there's a lunch, right? And so this guy's a Boy Scout at the time. He's 14. And he's standing behind there. Hey, look at this nice Boy Scout. Nixon doing a speech. And then the speech is done. And everybody's filing away. And the Boy Scout goes, snatch. And he grabs the sandwich. So he takes it home and says, Mom, I got this sandwich from Nixon. So she puts it in a jar and they put it in the freezer. It's been frozen ever since.
Wow.
So he's been on Carson, right? Steve Martin on the show at the time. So they gave him their paper plates and half-eaten sandwiches, and he has those. Wow. And he has a couple of other sandwiches from other celebrities. They sent it to him. So he has a bit of a collection now.
He's known as the celebrity half-eaten sandwich
guy from. And then he just ties it all in by writing a book about it.
Wow.
Too bad they weren't Big Macs. They'd still be edible.
Hey, that's right.
They would have filled up. Or a Twinkie.
If it was the fries, you wouldn't have to. If it was the fries, you wouldn't have to freeze them.
Exactly. That's crazy. Do we have a name for this gentleman?
I didn't write it down. It was kind of an odd name. So.
Cool. Well, Frank, thank you for that. I'm from Illinois. I'm from Chicago originally and never heard of that guy until right now. So thank you for that. All right. So my story is a 54-year-old Massachusetts man in the middle of a fast food meal collapsed and died in a restaurant. According to the case report in the New England Journal of Medicine, the cause of death was a cardiac arrest brought on by an overdose. So the big question is, what did he overdose on? Black licorice.
Wow.
The problem with black licorice medically is that it contains glycyrrhizic acid. And this particular acid, once consumed, converts into glycyrrhetinic acid in your body. These chemicals ruin the body's ability to maintain its potassium levels. So with the crashing potassium level and a slew of other health problems, including it creates high blood pressure and an irregular heart rhythm, which is what happened to this man. And despite getting, treatment to restore his potassium, they couldn't make it in the end. And here's a final note to this story is this is not the only time people have suffered health issues due to black licorice. In fact, the FDA recommends people of all ages avoid consuming large quantities of licorice at one time, including licorice teas.
Wow.
Crazy.
So I love black licorice.
Really?
So if I'm on a road trip, I'll eat a whole bag.
I do not want to be reading about you, Frank, as the next one.
I'm good to go. I don't know.
Black licorice. So that was our news segment, which now takes us to our joke of the day.
Okay, Alex, what is your funny joke for today?
So women tend to call me ugly until they find out how much I make. And then they call me ugly and poor.
Sounds like Rodney Dangerfield.
Right? That is definitely a Dangerfield-esque kind of joke.
Yep, yep.
That now takes us to our final segment of the day, which is our expert advice.
And now, expert advice from the expert.
We are calling upon our special guest expert, Stu, to share with us a little bit about his artistic technique. So, Stu, please share with us some expert advice about your process.
When I draw wild animals, I use reference photos, but I don't make it exactly like it. And it turns out they look a little like me.
Wow.
Do you know what I did one where it was these two raccoon brothers, and all of a sudden I'm like, why do they look so familiar? They look so, and I found a picture of my brother and I when we were kids, and I'm like, that's it. I'm secretly drawing me. So.
That's really cool. Well, I thought that chimp one that behind you looked exactly like you. I was like, well, that's
Yeah,
not true. I don't know
it's
what
got
it
my
is.
eyes there, you know, kind of like that. This is actually a duplication. The original actually went to Miami for a fundraiser for Art for Apes, and it actually sold. And
now, artist to artist, I have a question for you when it comes to the pen rendering that you're discussing. Like you said, there's no going back. Have you had to ever trash a picture because you overdrew it? Or
one of my biggest fears is that years from now, the only thing that's going to survive is that sketchbook of my failures. You know, typically I work in a sketchbook, and if I like it, I take it out and I go over to Michael's art for framing. And I'm there so much they know me by name. And so all of the ones that I've done that I finished are now in frames, and they're hanging someplace else. So one day they're going to open up this thing and say, oh yeah, these are horrible. And yeah, those are all the ones that didn't make it.
I will say, and Frank maybe knows this, with Photoshop and things like that, I've gotten lazy. The end result is a far cry from the original sketch in many cases, because I'm like, ooh, wow, that head's too big. I gotta shrink that down, or and I'll rework it digitally to get it how I like. And it's interesting because I saw a documentary on Bill Watterson, the creator of Calvin and Hobbes. And there was an archive at one of the syndicates where they had his original pictures, right? They had them in a file cabinet, and you could see all the whiteout and how perfect you were talking 20, 30 years ago. It had to be the perfect rendition in a black and white format, right? You couldn't do it digitally. So yeah, there was whiteout, there was stuff taped or glued on to cover up. So man, that's a way more difficult process than what we get to do now, right? And
well, cut and paste meant cut and paste.
So
and I've only digitized a couple, and I scan all my work, but there's only a few that I've actually enhanced in Photoshop. The reason why I don't do that, of course, is my rule of no looking back, but also this work is submitted to art shows, so the originals have to go as is. You can't make this beautiful thing, you send it, and then you're sending something else. It's not going to be, your reputation's going to be hurt as well. So you gotta, what you see is what you get.
So it takes you about 2 hours to do one of those?
Usually takes about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, unless I'm doing a commission, and then I will take about 3 to 4 hours, because this is somebody's baby, right? If I'm doing an ape is an ape, right? So you can, if the eye's a little off, that just gives them a personality. But when it's your baby, and especially if your baby just passed away, every nook and cranny has to be perfect. Typically, my style is sketchy, and the sketchier, the better, because I want the viewer to actually fill in the rest of the story. If you look very, very closely, you can see that the arms and everything else are to be left very loose, because I want the focus to be in here with especially around, this is called an angel in the arms. So I really wanted to have the little angel has the most detail.
Well, thank you for that, Stu, and thank you for
Yeah.
being a part of our show today, man. This was really incredible to have our first guest star
Yeah,
ever. So
it's been great to be here. And yeah, I'll probably still be texting you guys. I'll see something, oh, here's you go. Because another thing that I love about you guys is that you're doing stuff outside of my realm, right? I'm kind of stuck in one way with my character. These are my characters, these are my stories, these are my styles. So whenever I've had an idea, I'm like, what do I do with that? Now I actually have a venue. So if I have an idea, I can shoot it off to you. You guys make it. So the idea doesn't die and it doesn't have to fit into my little 3 panels.
before we let everyone go, why don't you tell us your URL one more time, or where people can see some of your work?
Okay, you can see my cartoons and enlighttunes.com, ENLIGHT, enlighttunes, OONS.com. And then if you want to see my pen drawings, it's at sturosenart.com, STUROSENART.com.
Awesome, guys. Well, again, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for watching and taking part in episode number 12. And until next week, hope you have a great week. Be well.
And now we're leaving. We gotta go. And now we're leaving. It's the end of our show. We had a good time. It's come to an end. We hope you had a good time. A good time, my friend. And now we're leaving. That's the end of our show. And now we're leaving. We gotta go.
Okay. All right.